happy October 2018. Happy fall and happy Halloween, YouTube. Thank you all so much for joining on this review today. I am so excited about this month, this time of the year. It's a personal favorite of mine. So in honor of the month of October, each week we're going to look at a classic horror film. And what better way to start than with the grandfather of the modern horror film, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what else I can say about this movie that hasn't been discussed thousands and thousands of times. I mean, whether it was the marketing behind this, the film itself, or just the impact that it has had on movie lovers, filmmakers. I mean, it is on the Mount Rushmore of all-time great films. My personal experience, I can remember at the age of 6, my parents took me to Universal Studios in Orlando. And one of the attractions there was Alfred Hitchcock, The Art of Making Movies. And one of the places in that attraction was the Psycho set. And I just fell in love with that. It was so fascinating for me to be able to see how this movie was done, what it encompassed. It blew my mind as a little 6-year-old. And so I can remember going home and watching that. And it scared me to death. Now, as great and creative as Alfred Hitchcock was, he gave credit, and I need to let you viewers know that the movie Psycho actually comes from a book, also titled Psycho, which was written by Robert Bloch. Now, he based that book off the 1950s serial killer Ed Gein. Ed Gein is a fascinating individual, and if you're into that sort of thing, I highly recommend you go check him out. His work would go on to inspire films like Psycho, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and so forth. So definitely go check out Ed Gein if you're not familiar with him. But what Hitchcock and his screenwriter, Joseph Stefano, did with the movie that was different from the book is they took our main character of Norman Bates. They made us feel sorry for him. They made us like this guy. In the book, you know, he's 40 some odd years old, he's overweight, balding, he's not an attractive man. And what they did is they went out and brought in Anthony Perkins to play the role of Norman Bates. He was this good-looking, kind of naive. I mean, you felt sorry for the character because his domineering mother and the influence and the impact she had on him. Now, many people have talked about the character of Norman Bates and what makes him stand out. I know Pastor Manning has something he can offer and what makes Norman Bates so memorable. Pastor Manning, please give us your thoughts on the character of Norman Bates.
There's something wrong with his mind.
Yes, that is very true, Pastor Manning. Did you want to offer anything else?
He does not understand the world. He doesn't. I don't care if he learned medicine. He doesn't understand the world. He doesn't think correctly. I don't care what he is.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Our other big name in this movie is the great Janet Leigh, who played Marion Crane. And another thing that's worth noting is you as the audience, you pull for Marion Crane as well. You like her. You're rooting for her. When in reality, you know, this is 1960. She's sleeping with another man and they're not married. She's doing this on her lunch break. She ends up stealing $40,000 in cash and running away to get with her boyfriend.
I declare.
I don't.
As the audience, Hitchcock gets you to root for her, and you root for Norman. You like these people. Even though you notice when Norman meets Marion and starts talking to her, he's a creepy dude. Something is definitely off. And to me, you know, this movie is the first to take the horror concept out of the Gothic castles and the monsters, you know, like Frankenstein and Dracula and the Wolfman. It puts it in a real-life setting. And I have always thought personally, the spaceman landing in the backyard is nowhere near as terrifying as that next door neighbor peeking in your window at night. And that's what happens in this film. I mean, it's a famous shot. Norman Bates, the close-up on his eye, as he is watching Marion undress through the wall. It's eerie. It's creepy. And you can't talk about Psycho without referencing quite possibly the most famous scene in the history of movies. The shower scene. This also marks a major impact in movie history when you have your main character the audience has followed. She's basically in every single shot since the film opened. And she's killed off about halfway through the movie. Another thing that is worth noting about that shower scene, originally Hitchcock did not want any music for that shot. He said it'll be scary enough on its own. We don't need music. And you've got to give a lot of props, big round of applause, Bernard Herrmann. He worked on a number of films, ton of Alfred Hitchcock films, Orson Welles, you name it. He went ahead and recorded that infamous, eerie, just heart-pounding music. And when Hitchcock heard that, he was like, yeah, I should probably use that. So Bernard Herrmann's impact, that just takes the film up to a whole new level. The importance of music in motion picture is absolutely vital. But I do want to say, on a personal note, while most would consider the shower scene the scariest part of that film, I have always thought the death of Milton Arbogast, played by the great Martin Balsam, he's the private investigator trying to find Janet Leigh's character, I always felt like his death scared me more than Janet Leigh's. Because as Hitchcock is famous for saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, the scare itself is not in the boom. That's not what scares you. It's the anticipation. It's knowing, okay, something is going to happen. And that's what causes you to jump. And that scene is a perfect example of that. Just the little things showing him walk up the stairs, the music that's going on. You know something is going to happen. So the grand finale of the movie, we learn that Mother has been dead a long time, and it was all Norman Bates. He is psychologically messed up. And the beautiful thing about one of the things Hitchcock did to market this film is he made the audience really think, okay, there is a character of Mother. I mean, he would advertise auditions, and you heard the woman's voice throughout the film, but you never did see her face. And then to have that twist, that grand finale, I can't imagine what the audience would have felt seeing that for the first time in 1960 when Vera Miles reaches for Mother, and as she turns around, that's got to be horrifying. And one little side note trivia here, at the very end of the film, when Norman is in custody, one of the guards is the famous Ted Knight. Something else I think that is important to add is this film, like so many of Hitchcock's films and basically the horror films that I tend to really like, there is very little blood and gore. I mean, the blood in this movie is so minute. And by the way, it's chocolate syrup. That's what they used for the shower scene, just in case you didn't know. But it's not the actual visual of, oh, she's getting stabbed. It's the thought. Because not once do you ever see the knife hit Janet Leigh's skin. It's just your mind and the camera angles, the music, the whole art of making a movie. It's just brilliant. It terrifies you by letting you create in your mind what's scary. I love that about Hitchcock. So I'm going to give this movie a rating of 9 out of 10. It still holds up after all these years. The legacy, the shock factor, the impact, everything about it. I mean, sure, there's a few things that are outdated. The cars and the Arbogast character is using a payphone instead of a cell phone. I'm sure some of you watching this, you may not even know what a payphone is, but if you watch the movie, you can see it in there. But this film, it knocks it out of the park every single time. The concept of this is still absolutely terrifying. Well, that's about all I got, guys. I could sit here and talk about this forever, but I hope you liked what you saw. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Like the video, comment, let me know your thoughts on the movie. I love having your support. I really appreciate you so much, and we'll see you next week for another classic horror film.